Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. Welcome back to the show, Stewart.
Thank you, Jim. Always good to be here.
Stewart, you're worried about Canadian sovereignty and BC economic development because of actions being taken in Washington State. Is this almost piracy or a covert invasion of Canadian sovereignty?
It's like we're back to the Cold War. You know, just a few days ago, we heard that the governor of Washington State, Governor Inslee, wants to do whatever he can find in his toolbox, very similar to what John Horgan was saying, to stop the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. And that pipeline is a way to ensure Canadian prosperity for a generation, to build Canadian jobs that create decent lives and allow us to protect our borders. But the Washington State government is against us having that. So much so that they've just introduced a bill. It's called Washington House Bill 1578. People's heads are going to explode when they hear about this, Jim. I'm telling you, to stop not just things that they do in their own waters in Washington State and Puget Sound, but to intrude into Canadian waters to try to govern what we do inside Canadian territory. It's like they're trying to invade us. It's absolutely outrageous what's happening here.
What are they proposing?
They're proposing to draw a line from an island inside Canadian waters, very close to Victoria, down across the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and prohibiting all ships in future from crossing that line if they're carrying oil products and are over a certain size. Now, in practice, we don't have those ships right now, but they're doing it for a reason. They're also looking into certain sorts of controls over the one waterway we have for shipping to get from the Port of Vancouver to open sea from the southern exit through the Strait of Juan de Fuca. I'm talking about Harrow Strait, and placing new restrictions on that. They don't have the right to do that, but they are, I think, purposely stirring things up because there is a commitment, it seems, between the BC government that is trying to stop Trans Mountain and stop Canadian prosperity with Governor Inslee that wants to do the same thing, who don't trust our maritime community to do what they've been doing for 60 years and ship that oil safely and take these measures to inhibit the safe transportation of our cargoes. So it's gross overreach by a state legislature that verges into a nation-to-nation type of gambit by the USA, which I think is very dangerous in terms of trade relationships, diplomacy, and even sovereignty of a more serious level.
Would that warrant a complaint to the State Department that Washington State is involved in federal politics or federal policy?
Yeah, I think we've got to make sure that Washingtonians understand what's going on here. We have to make sure that Washington, D.C. knows what this kind of outlier rebel group in Washington State is trying to do. It's improper, and you know they so we're doing it for the whales. Well, they seem not to care about the shipping slowdown that Canada imposes, and ships through Canadian waters voluntarily follow. Meanwhile, the American ships, or the ships destined for American ports, they just chug on through at full speed. They don't care about it. But now we have this bill where they're trying to, save Washington State from Canada. I mean, it's absolutely offensive, and it's pure politics.
Now, why doesn't Washington State, through Cherry Point's refinery, supply a lot of the gasoline to Vancouver? Isn't this kind of a two-faced action?
Two-faced. Oh, they have 5 major refineries around Puget Sound. They bring in, because on the one hand, they're trying to stop Canadian oil from getting to market, but they're bringing in cargoes from Russia. so that people around the lower mainland are actually at different times, probably they've got some Russian oil in their tanks, because we can't get Alberta oil into our system because we don't have the pipeline built yet. I mean, it's incredibly offensive that we are creating prosperity in Russia for a country that has invaded Ukraine illegally, that murders diplomats and others in foreign countries, that suppresses free speech and kills journalists in Russia. We're making those people richer while stopping Canadian prosperity. I mean, people should be really upset about this. I would be writing to Premier Horgan. I'll be writing to Jay Inslee. I'll be writing to our Canadian federal representatives and make sure they understand what's going on. And I would be calling my MP. You know, listeners, call your MP. Let them know what's going on. Washington State Bill 1578. It's an outrage.
Did the Resource Works Society also stop more American interference in BC's economy?
Well, that's one of the things. I mean, we're stretched thin, Jim. There's so much work to be done.
But there was a court action?
That's right. So just recently, the NEB, National Energy Board of Canada, is reviewing a request from a San Francisco organization called Stand.Earth. They do have an office in Vancouver, but they're an American-controlled, American-funded organization seeking to interfere in Canadian affairs, just like Governor Inslee. They did put through a request to the National Energy Board to bring a whole new layer of process into the current reconsideration of the Trans Mountain Pipeline that's looking at killer whales and indigenous issues. And they asked that this whole new process be introduced because my group, Resource Works, is registered as an intervener in the process. I was able to put together a brief in legal terms to state the case as to why this was not a good idea. In fact, we've got a very good process in the reconsideration. Not that we wanted to be in it because it was already an approved project, but we made the case that this is something the government of Canada, the current one, had already committed to politically to the people of Canada, and to take a foreign group's request that we slow things down again, maybe to the point of killing the project. I think that's really the idea here. Was unacceptable. We argued that case, made our submission, and I was very pleased to see that the ruling came down that supports continuing on business as usual. They thanked the Stand.Earth people for their work and said we're going to continue as we have been. So that's a win for the people of Canada today.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, the Prime Minister's chief advisor in his office, Gerald Butts, has resigned. Does that mean anything to the resource industry?
Well, I think it means a lot. I mean, you think back to 2015 when the Trudeau government first came in, having won in October of that year. Right from the start, we saw that there was a completely new approach to the resource sector, in particular in the West. You know, there were at that time three major pipeline proposals: the Energy East, Trans Mountain, and Northern Gateway, that were under consideration. Since that time, two of them have died. That has a big negative impact on Alberta. We have got legislation like Bill C-48 that will prohibit the shipment of liquid fuels from Northwest British Columbia ports, which a lot of people are very upset about. It's not really clear who wants this or what what good it will accomplish, given the amount of American oil that Canada isn't bothered by, that goes past our waters in the north every day. You know, it seems as if major offices, be it Ministry of the Environment, the Natural Resource Ministry, the Prime Minister's office have almost been taken over by people from groups that are heavily weighted in favor of shutting down the resource sector. Not just the oil sands, I mean, that's the big thing, but the legislation and policy direction has really been, I think, reflective of what Jerry Butts was committed to before he came into government. So, given his power in the Prime Minister's office as the Prime Minister's right-hand man, I mean, it wasn't at all surprising to see the effect. And, 4 years later, here we are in a situation where Canada has gone from having a very good reputation as a place to invest for resource development that creates enormous benefits for Canadians to just about the worst place you could imagine. We've been completely tarnished. And that hasn't happened because, Canadians have gotten lousy at doing these things or because we don't have anything that the world wants. It's happened because really the Butts doctrine has taken hold of the federal government, and it has resulted in, terrible damage to our reputation and the economy. So it's really great news that Butts has been sent on. I mean, let's hope that we do see a return to what I would think of as the more classic federal liberal values. We saw a party that ran in 2015 and won by going to the left of the Socialist Party, and I think that carries a price, the expectation of whose votes they courted. If they're going to go after that same vote in 2019 in October, and I'm beginning to think they might not be so focused on that, then we could have a repeat. It's always possible of the same kind of government, but I think that the pendulum is swinging for the party back to kind of, let's put Canadians first. Let's recognize that we can do these things right. We can protect the environment. We can have a strong economy. I mean, those have been words we've heard from the Prime Minister, but they have been completely contradicted by the actions of people like Gerald Butts.
I just saw a report that refineries around the world are craving heavy oil like Alberta produces because of the cutbacks from Venezuela. Is that good news for the Alberta industry, but you need a way to get it there?
Oh, you do. And one of the things with heavy oil is that, contrary to what you might think, heavy oil versus light oil, well, it's got far more gasoline that can be produced from it. And lighter oils, you get a bit of gasoline, and then you have different products that you can make from it. But the beauty of heavy oil is that refineries that do want to produce a lot of gasoline, and we use so much of it, can look to heavy oil for that. That's a good thing. Also, there's another amazing thing too about heavy oil is that there's less waste in the refining process. And so that's an environmental issue that, funnily enough, does come from heavy oil. And thirdly, the big thing is that when someone has built a refinery, it's an immense investment, and it is more or less committed to the type of oil. So if it's a refinery for lighter oils, it's always going to be that. If it's one for heavy oil, it will always be that. So if suddenly you don't have a supply of heavy oil because Venezuela has got troubles, you have to find another source of heavy oil, or you can't run your refinery. You can't, because it's not possible to substitute light oil for heavy oil.
Alberta has just reached a leasing agreement with the major railways to supply 4,400 rail cars to ship oil. Is that good news or bad news, depending on which way you look at it?
Well, you can appreciate the feeling in the government of Alberta they have to do something. But I think that they should, on each one of those oil cars, which I think can be shipped safely. I have great confidence in the railroaders of Canada in their ability to do this safely. The odds are stacked against them in terms of safety versus a pipeline. That's just a simple fact of mathematics. You're going to have more accidents per, rail car per shipment in rail than you will by pipeline. And that's something to consider. So I think on every oil car, they should put a phone number. They should have a phone number of Minister George Heyman, the Environment Minister of BC, who thinks that he is protecting the environment by opposing the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. So people can call him. They put his cell phone number on those trains. They can call him when they see those sitting in the Fraser River despoiling a salmon run one day, because that's going to happen. It won't happen with the pipeline, because the pipeline goes nowhere near that Fraser River Canyon. There's some parts where it is in proximity to the river, but it doesn't go through those treacherous stretches of the canyon when you think up, up the valley there. So there's a job for CP. Get the paintbrush out and find out that phone number and paint it on so people can call when they see that happen. Because I think those who claim to be protecting the environment but are doing things that are just stupid and hurt the environment should be called out.
Well, we just had an oil train derailment near the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. That could have happened in the Fraser Canyon.
Oh, yes.
So does that demonstrate why pipelines are needed? It's just safer?
It's safer. I mean, you put that in the ground. You know where it is. Those pipes are an inch thick. They don't simply break. I mean, they have to be monitored. Of course, there's extensive safety regimes that are needed, and every activist will tell you about the time that a pipeline had this problem or that problem. Well, of course that happens. There are hundreds of thousands of miles of pipelines, but they don't move. They're sitting there static. You've got them bedded into the ground the way you want them to be. You've got them engineered. Each bend, I don't think most people know this. I certainly didn't know it till a pipeliner told me, and I was inspecting a yard in northeastern BC. Each one of those pipes is not some, cookie cutter chunk of pipe that comes off a production line. Each one is specifically tailored for where it's going to go. There are imperceptible to the naked eye adjustments or tailoring of each component, whether it's going around a bend or if this piece is going to be in a certain type of condition and it needs to be to this specification. I think they even have different types of metal mixtures that they use for different stress areas of a pipeline. Everything is, long before it's built, it is figured out by expert engineers and designers and 3D computers, so they know exactly what they're building, so it is perfectly tailored to the environment that it's going to be sitting in for the next half a century. So you really can't beat that amount of protection, and it's what you've got. Compare that to something on a bunch of wheels that's rolling around all the time, carrying things. Well, there's no comparison.
We'll have more with Stewart Muir right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Stewart Muir. Stewart, what's the latest in the LNG front?
Well, there's been some great news recently on LNG with LNG Canada's announcement, $40 billion project. But a few days ago, some not so good news when a project that's probably not as high profile, it's the Quispa LNG project being developed by Steelhead LNG. It was going to be on the west coast of Vancouver Island, but we heard on Friday from the First Nations, who are very much at the heart of this project, that the LNG facility is not going to be built. The staff have been all let go. I think there's still a vision alive to eventually get to it or build the pipeline that will enable it. But for now, it's not going to go. I've run into the people from Steelhead at industry events and talked to them, talked to the First Nation, the Huayap First Nation from the west coast of Vancouver Island. They've worked so hard. It's definitely a day that I feel is a sad one, because the hopes to produce a clean gas product that will be part of global energy transition, lower greenhouse gas emissions. I think everybody wants that. This project was about that, just as LNG Canada is about that. And it's not going to happen now. So it's I think a project whose day will come, but a lot of pieces have to fit together again in future for it to happen. I think the good news is, though, that we're hearing from First Nations and others in northeastern BC that they are more excited than ever in terms of wanting to get ready to supply LNG Canada. That project is probably going to be sending its first cargo at the end of 2023. It's only less than 4 years away now, and less than 5 years away, and it's going to make a massive impact. I've calculated between 13 to 19 million cars equivalent taken off the road because of LNG Canada when that gas is used to displace coal for making electricity. That is equivalent to all of BC's emissions. So LNG Canada is like erasing BC's emissions. It's incredible. You don't hear that from, the eco groups from the U.S. who are coming to Canada to tell us we can't do this and can't do that. They don't want to talk about that. But it's the effect of having natural gas, cleaner energy, exported like that, which is precipitating this entire move into LNG.
And Stewart, the Resource Works Society also plans to honor a person. Who is it, why, and where?
Well, that's right. We'll be honoring not only our founding chair, but also we'll have a keynote speaker March 14th in Vancouver at the Terminal City Club. We have if you go to Eventbrite and put in Resource Works, we may have a few tickets left. It's sold very, very fast. A lot of people want to hear from Vivian Krause. She's been researching some issues around Canadian sovereignty, our energy future, how we can survive as a country with a small population, huge landmass, next to a country that the USA and south of Russia. We've got Russia on the other side of the pole, sandwiched between these two great countries. Here we are, little Canada, and we are buffeted on all sides by forces larger than ourselves that I think are envious of our status and aren't necessarily the nicest people on the block. So how do we protect Canada? And Vivian has been researching this topic for a long time, and she's got some astonishing findings, particularly about interference in Canadian affairs by outside interests. And she gets called all over the country to talk about these things. It's like they say in Canadian entertainment, people have to make it somewhere else before they make it back home. I think that's been true of Vivian. We're gonna give her a rousing welcome back home in Vancouver, where she lives, to hear her research and ideas on this on March 14th.
Stewart, thank you so much for chatting with us.
My pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
My guest has been Stewart Muir, Executive Director of the Resource Works Society. If you have any questions for Stewart, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. His Twitter handle @SJMuir. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.